Welcome to the Ogles channel. Thanks for watching today, and let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy and Game Boy Color game. And today focus on a game called Return of the Ninja for the Game Boy Color. Now, on first inspection, this looks like a direct sequel to Shadow of the Ninja or Ninja Gaiden's Shadow on the Game Boy. However, it's more of a spiritual successor to both of those games because it's made by the same company and it definitely borrows from like the same atmosphere, same aesthetic. However, like the core gameplay is going to be a little bit different. Instead of being like an action platform game, it's more of a action stealth platform game. And it's really going to focus on the idea of like sneaking up behind your enemies or sneaking around your enemies and trying to avoid attack and damage that way. It's a great looking game, but it is fairly difficult as well. But today we're going to break down the entire game. We're going to see if it can stand in its own right, or is it destined to live in the shadow of the Ninja. Now, this particular game did get moved up in our queue a little bit because Anastasia Jermala requested one of my earlier videos, and so naturally moved up in the queue. If there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game in the comments down below. And just like Return of the Ninja, I keep wanting to call it Shadow of the Ninja, but just like Return of the Ninja, we'll move it right up in the queue here. Now, I always like to start the videos up by looking at the box art for the game first, and the box art for Return of the Ninja here is very minimalistic. You have the main character, Tsuchikage, there holding his katana out, a little gleam of light coming in and off of that, all in black and white, a very artistic cover. And I do feel like anyone who bought the game knew exactly what type of game they're getting, and so I do feel like the cover accomplishes its mission in that aspect. But let's go ahead and dive into the actual game. Now, Return to the Ninja starts off with some Japanese text coming in, a quick glimpse of our hero, Tsuchikage, and then the title screen pops up after that. And title screen has some pretty good background music as well, sort of a minimalistic tone, but then a lead synth comes in over the top of that, and the lead synth is pretty great for this. I'll let a little bit of it play right here. And that's not the only good song on the soundtrack. There are several highlights as we go. Now, from the title screen, you do go into New Game, and on New Game, you can do Stage Select, Card Mode, or Password. And Stage Select, obviously going to start the main game up. Card Select are like different cards you collect throughout the experience. And truth be told, the cards don't really do anything except for like a collectible card game function. You can trade those cards with someone else who's also playing the game. I feel like they could have done more with the card mode. And then there's the password part, which is actually a pretty valuable part of the game because anytime you finish a level, you have all these items that you've collected. And if you go into another level and you die, you lose all of those items. But before you go into that level, they give you a password. So if you do end up dying in the next level, you can just simply go back to the title screen, punch in the password, and start that second level with all of your items once again. I don't know why the game doesn't just allow you to keep all of the items even when you die, if they're giving you the option here of writing down a password to let you keep all the items if you die. But regardless, the password system is very valuable for the game. Now, when you start the actual game up here, you only have one stage to choose from. There are going to be 6 total, but you have to start off in stage 1. It's sort of like a tutorial of sorts here. And you have 2 characters that you can choose from. You can choose from Tsuchikage, who's like a boy ninja with a traditional katana as his weapon. And the other character is Sayuri, and she has basically like little daggers. I don't think they're sides. I think they're more like daggers. And her special weapon is going to be like a boomerang that she can throw out and it sort of comes back to you, where Tsuchikage's weapon is just simply going to be a ninja star that he throws out. And I'm going to rotate back and forth between the 2 characters throughout our playthrough here, but I'm going to start off with Tsuchikage as my main one. Now, after we select our character, we get a little cutscene here of the 2 main characters in a field looking at a burning village, and they say something's wrong with our village. We better go investigate. Well, obviously something's wrong. It's all up in flames here. But we go ahead and head into our first level here, and every one of the levels in the game is like a multi-level stage as far as like swapping the aesthetics up or swapping the backgrounds up or even the enemies up as you go. And so the game is pretty creative when it comes to sort of mixing multiple stages into one single stage. And level 1 is going to have you going through a village, a bamboo field, a waterfall area, and you're going to be fighting off things like soldiers and snakes and dogs as you go. And the cool thing about like every enemy that you encounter is they're not going to attack you immediately. The AI in the game is not simply designed to do a auto rush anytime they walk onto the screen. They're going to stand there and they're not going to notice you until you get close to them. A little exclamation point will come above their head and then they'll begin to attack you. And this is really cool because it allows you to like sneak up on the enemies, get like a little stealth kill, or you can like sneak around the enemies. Like later on you get ninja moves as far as like clinging to the ceiling. You can sort of, hover above them or climb above them. They never notice you, and so you can avoid a lot of enemies in the game. And so it definitely makes it more of a stealth platforming action game instead of just simply being a straightforward action game. And that's a cool concept for this game. And also the attack moves. You don't just simply have your normal, slices and whatnot. Like I mentioned earlier, you can actually charge your weapon up and you can shoot out a projectile at all of the enemies. And this is going to be pretty handy here because you can take out the vast majority of enemies from a distance. You charge up your katana here, you shoot out like a little ninja star. And if you are playing as Sayuri, you can charge it up and shoot out like a little boomerang to attack the enemies. And so like you don't really ever have to get super close to the vast majority of enemies in this game. You can take them out with stealth, or you can take them out with distant attacks with your ninja star or your boomerang here. Now, as cool as all these aspects of the game are, there are some disadvantages as well with the playstyle. For example, like your jump move, you can only do one distance of jump. Like pretty much since the beginning of platforming all the way back to Mario, when you tap the jump button, you do like a very small jump. And when you hold the jump button, you do a high jump. Well, as soon as you tap the jump button in this game, you automatically do a high jump. And that's a little bit on the annoying side because you can't really time some of your jumps very well. And it does take away from some of the ninja aspect as well, not being able to control your character as good as you want to. Also, the camera's a little bit off in the game, and I know it's weird to say that about a 2D game instead of a 3D game, but there are so many opportunities where it's like focused on your character, and you're going to be doing vertical jumps, mainly going downward, and you can't actually see like where you're jumping to. It's just simply a blind jump, and sometimes you fall in the hole, sometimes you hit an enemy when you jump down, and it's really annoying not being able to like scroll the camera down to see where you're going to be jumping at. I know like when Super Mario Bros. Was ported over to the Game Boy Color, they actually allowed the camera to go up and down since the playing field itself could not fit on the Game Boy screen, and it allowed you to sort of see like where you're jumping to. It wasn't the best system, but it at least allowed you to do it. Where in this game, it's like a blind jump many occasions throughout your adventure, and that can end up costing you a good bit of health as you go. Now, eventually you can get to the boss of Area 1, who's like a red robot ninja. Reminds me a little bit like Proto Man from the early Mega Man games, like if he had a sword anyway. And the boss is actually pretty darn tough, especially for a first level boss here. But if you just simply charge your weapon up and keep your distance and just simply keep throwing your projectiles out, because you have an infinite number of projectiles, you simply have to take the time to charge it. You can just keep your distance, continue to throw out your projectile, and that's how I beat this boss. And truth be told, it's how I'm going to beat the vast majority of bosses inside the game. But if the game were to take away like its distance attacks, this game would be a nearly impossible game, at least for me to beat. Now, when you finish the level up, you do get a ranking of A, B, C, or D, depending on like how good you were at like stealth kills and things like that, or how much damage you took. I got a ranking of D, which means I did absolutely terrible here, but I still finished the level. And after you finish it, you get a little secret card here. And like I said, the cards are like collectible cards, and I'm assuming you get a different one for every ranking. And like I said, you can trade these amongst your friends, but they don't actually do anything. It's just like a little collectible card or like a trophy, I guess, inside the game. Now, after you finish the level, you do get a little cutscene here of an old man talking to our two main heroes, and he says that we saved the village. However, the evil ninja clan Iga that attacked the village stole all of our magical scrolls, and they're going to use those magical scrolls to bring back the era of the Warring States. And so we need to go back and attack Iga and basically get all of our scrolls back in order to prevent this upcoming civil war or this upcoming war inside of our country here. And so we have to go and collect all of these different scrolls. Now, there are 5 scrolls we have to collect, which means there are 5 levels we have to defeat. And the old man also tells us that he has hidden like secret weapons throughout the enemy's hideout to help us on our journey. And he goes through all of them fairly briefly here, and I'll break them down. You can get the Iron Claw, which allows you to like dig into the soil, and you can go underground and basically avoid a lot of enemies this way or find new passageways to explore. You can get the Tabi, which allows you to walk on the ceiling, like sort of a sticky boots to a degree. You can get Ninja Sandals, which allows you to have a charged jump to jump even higher. You can get the Kabuto, which is a helmet that you can use to break through the ceiling walls. You can get a Mantle, which controls your falling speed, sort of like the cape in Super Mario World. You can also get the, if I'm saying it right here, a Muzo Gumo, which allows you to walk on water and so basically pull out a miracle of sorts. And these different powers are hidden throughout the level, and sometimes you're going to have to find that particular power in order to actually finish the level up itself and find access to the boss. Now, after you finish up the cutscene, you have access to stages 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you can choose whatever order you want to accomplish these stages, but stage 6 will not appear until you've beaten stages 2 through 5. And it's sort of like a Mega Man game, you sort of choose whichever one you like best, but there are no like special power-ups from the bosses that you get, so there's no benefit to doing like one before the others. So I start off in stage 2 here, because I'm just going to go in numerical order. In stage 2, I do choose Sayuri as my character, and it starts off as like a little cliff area here, and you work your way up the cliff. It's easy to get the stealth kills here, because you can just sort of wait till the enemy journeys to one side, jump up behind them, and do your attacks. And then you get to an area where you're supposed to go into a temple, but you can't go into the temple And so you have to figure out like the puzzle mechanic of like how to sneak in there. And there's all these little hanging lanterns that are coming down with a little face on them. And if you attack the lantern, it's going to sort of have like a little explosion. It's going to change it to a different face. And then you can jump on top of that lantern and use like a little platform to journey up toward the top of the temple. It's a cool little aesthetic here. And I do like how you can like manipulate the environment a little bit as well. You're also going to go through an area, it's like a little graveyard, has like little spikes that come out, little like dry bones type skeletons here. I say they're like dry bones because like when you kill them, they're going to come back to life just like dry bones in Super Mario Brothers. And eventually you're going to find your way into the temple itself. And there's all like these little spiders who are going to shoot little spider webs down at you. Very basic attack for a spider, but still, you know, they're continuing to mix the backgrounds up, the enemies up, and just sort of the gameplay in general as we're going here. And finally get to a second graveyard in this level, and there's like little hands that are going to come out and try to grab you from underneath the soil. You know, typical graveyard aesthetic, typical graveyard stuff here. And you're going to finally get to the end of the graveyard, and you're going to get your first item or your first power-up. Belle, do you want to be on the screen? Hang on one second. Belle, do you want to review the game? You want to review the game? You got a lot to say about Return to Ninja. But we eventually get to our first weapon here, which is going to be the Iron Claw, which allows us to dig through the soil. And it's a really cool weapon because you can like go back to the graveyard, dig into the soil, and you just sort of become like a little mole here. And you can sort of journey your way underneath all the graves and avoid all of the attacks. And you go back into the temple, and there's one area here that has that same type of soil. You can dig into it, journey underneath this wall here, and now you can finally go into a little door, and the door is going to lead us to our second boss inside the game, which has a really cool aesthetic. It's like a giant Grim Reaper floating above you, shoots out these little green balls that try to attack you. Almost looks like more something out like a Castlevania type game than a Return of the Ninja or Ninja Gaiden type game, but still a really cool boss nonetheless. The strategy for this one is not going to be a distance attack, which is different from like every other boss you're going to encounter, but this one is very easy to simply jump up, get a few slices in, sort of back away, jump up, get a few slices in, and he's taken out pretty darn quickly. A really cool boss, but a very easy boss at the same time. Now, after you finish up this level, I do get another ranking here. I got another D ranking, so I guess I wasn't stealthy enough, or I didn't take enough enemies out. And so I eventually do get above a D, trust me. But I'm going to hit D for the vast majority of the game here. You get a little trading card. I get the sword card here. And then we move on into stage number 3, which is going to be a less interesting stage, at least in my opinion. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot in this level that I did not explore. It's basically a giant cave. And so it starts off in a traditional cave format here. Pretty good little glow effects from the little candles. You know, bats inside the cave, they're going to try to attack you. And as you journey down through the cave, I end up getting another item here, which allows me to have like the super jump. And it's like the little slippers, it looks like. But also inside the cave here, you have two different directions you can go in. One direction is going to be like a water cave. So you have to travel through and you have to basically hop over all these little waterfalls or little water spouts that are coming up. I didn't take that path. I took the fire path. And so I journey into that direction. So there's probably like an entire different area I could explore for the water side. But the fire path does lead me to the boss here. And this is probably the second best boss in the game. It's a giant Satan type character who's going to be sort of following you from right to left. And you just simply have to continue journeying left. And anytime he shoots a fireball out at you, you just simply have your weapon charged up, jump in the air, jump over the fireball, fire off your projectile, come back down to the ground, begin to charge again, and wait for him to shoot another fireball out to jump over it and fire your weapon at him. It's very easy to dodge, it's very easy to attack, and he's taken out in no time. And evidently I did a little bit better in this level because I got a B ranking, probably because I avoided like half the level so I couldn't get like, you know, attacked or detected by like some of the enemies. But regardless, I did get a B ranking, and I get a new card here, which is the Cat's Eye Cloak. And all these cards sound like really cool. I just wish they had some effect in the game rather than simply a trading card mechanic. And so then I journey on into stage number 4 here. And I do have the charge jump, and I didn't really realize it until I actually ended the level. And so I tried out the charge jump, and it sort of functions like Super Mario Brothers 2 here. You sort of bend down, you sort of glow a little bit, and you jump like really high up in the air. And so that's the main new mechanic I've got. So I can dig into the soil, and I can also jump really darn high. Now, once again, if you die in any of these levels, you lose all of these little power-ups. And so that's why the password system is so important here. Because if you do die, you can just simply punch in your password, and you can journey back or go back to exactly where you were with all those items going into the next level. And so you always want to write your passwords down for this particular game, because you don't ever want to go into a level, die, and just lose everything. Now, stage 4 is basically a giant pirate ship here. You can climb up the gallows, little seagulls are going to come after you. You have men behind cannons who are going to shoot cannons out at you. And it's just, like I said, a giant pirate ship of basic pirate aesthetic as you go. As I'm journeying through here, I do get 2 new weapons or 2 new items to power myself up with. I do get the ability to climb on the ceiling. That's a really cool stealth mechanic, and you can see it right here in action. You can avoid a lot of enemies, you can get into new areas, and you are going to have it if you want to access the boss. And I also got the cape, which the cape allows you to basically float, sort of like you do in Super Mario World, and you can go over giant gaps this way. And you do have to find the cape and the sticky boots in order to actually get to the boss for the level. Now when you get to the boss, he feels very much like the very first boss in the game, almost like a different color scheme for it, pretty much the same attacks, the same movements. Not a very good boss in the game. I didn't like this boss pretty much at all. Very meh. But when I finished the level, they also felt I did a very meh job, and they gave me a D ranking yet again, and I get the fire magic card if I want to trade that with a friend. And so now I journey into stage number 5. And this stage here is probably the most annoying stage in the entire game because it's like one giant maze. You're in a temple for the vast majority of it. Most of the areas look almost exactly the same. And you're going to have to use your helmet to break through walls or break through ceilings that you didn't see sometimes. And so like it's one giant maze trying to figure out where to go. And sometimes like when you escape out of the temple into like a little field area or like a little village area, you think you're like making progress, but then before you know it, you're right back in the temple all over again. And I just do not like this particular stage. I will give it credit as having one of the best soundtracks for the game, especially like when you're outside the temple, because when you go into the temple, you have a different song, which is not nearly as good. But when you're on the outskirts here, it's a very slow and haunting song, and I'll let a little bit of it play right here. Like I said, it's one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack, but it's just a shame it's combined with like my least favorite level inside the entire game. Now, when you finally get to the boss of this level, you've traveled through all the maze, you figure out all the little, trick mechanics behind the walls and the ceilings and whatnot. You're going to get a boss that's going to remind me a little bit of Sonic, and pretty much only because of his jump here. Like when he jumps, he turns like a little spinning ball. He is fairly hard to avoid, but luckily I went into the arena here with a good bit of health, and so he wasn't too bad for me to take out. And when I finish him up, I do get yet another ranking of D for the level, and my new bonus card is going to be Trick Wall, because we had to, discover a trick ceiling in order to advance inside the level. And now we have another cutscene for the game. And it's basically saying that there's one more fella in the Iga clan who's higher up, and we need to go conquer him in order to get the last final scroll bag in order to stop the time of the warring states. And now stage 6 has officially opened up, and now we can journey into that, and we're basically on the outskirts of a castle here, and there's a giant water area we have to travel through. And the water area itself is fairly rough because there's a lot of cannons that are firing at you. You have a lot of blind jumps down into the water, a lot of little spikes that are moving back and forth, and it will take you a few tries to journey through this. Probably have to put in the password a few different times because you don't want to lose all of your items. And when you get to the edge of the water area, there are 2 paths that you can go on. There's the north path or the south path. If you take the north path, you actually get another item here, which is like a life vest or like a life saver, or a floaty is what you're going to get. And that's going to allow you to essentially walk on water, which is a pretty cool mechanic. And, once again, like doing a little miracle here, run across the water. And if you want to drop back down into it, you just simply press the down button and you fall into the water. And that's going to come in really handy here because, like, if you take the south path, there's going to be a little area with a bunch of spikes. And if you didn't pick up the walk on water item, you'd almost certainly take damage here simply trying to jump over the spikes. So it's not completely necessary, but it is a very beneficial item to pick up. But there's also a second benefit to taking the northern path first to get the little floaty item. And that's the idea that you can come up behind this little cannon here, destroy the cannon, get an item off of it to refill your health or your magic, journey back into another screen, immediately come back into the first screen, go behind the cannon again. It's like right there, get another little item for health or magic, and you can max out your health meter and your magic meter before going into the final stages or the final boss area of the game. And it's going to save you so much time when going into the final boss if you've maxed both of these meters out. Because one thing I did forget to mention earlier is you do collect little magic spells throughout the game, like little tornado spells or little fire spells. Anytime you press the select button, you do that particular spell, and it rains down from the heavens to kill all of the enemies on the screen. But you have to charge your magic up or get magic items in order to use those particular spells. And the magic that's required to use those spells is fairly hard to come by, so if you have an opportunity to farm it right here, you can max it out before going into the final area of the game. And when we do get to the last boss here, it's a giant samurai on top of his horse, giant armor, and as soon as I go into the boss arena, I start unloading those magic spells that I farmed here, and it basically almost kills him in one swift blow, and then it only takes like 1 or 2 projectile shots, and he's taken out, and the final boss was a joke as long as you farmed in that particular area. I don't know how hard he is without it, but I would assume he's a pretty tough boss here. Now, when I finish the level up, I do get a ranking of a D again, probably because I basically just took the final boss out here of just magic spells, which the game probably didn't like a whole lot. I get yet another little magic card here that I can, trade with friends, a pointless card. And then we get the final cutscene here, and it's basically us standing back, and we're talking over it, and we say a dark shadow was stopped by a shadow. And so it basically says it's a never-ending mission being a ninja in the game. And it's an odd little speech at the end, but it's fine. And then the credits begin to roll, and it gives us one final password for the game if you want to journey back in with all of your items and sort of replay any of the levels to try to get a higher ranking system. Which I don't know if there's any benefit to it. That'd be more of a completionist side of things. But for finishing the game, we've officially beaten the game. But let's talk about the game as an overall here, because overall this is a really good Game Boy game, but it does have a few flaws in it as well. First off, the graphics, fantastic. The soundtrack, pretty top notch, but out the majority of it. I really enjoy the stealth mechanics. I enjoy to give you like a ranking system at the end, like depending on how well you did, taking all the enemies out. All of that's really cool inside the game. I like the characters that you can choose from. I like the distance attacks. I like the magic attacks that you can collect, rain down on the enemies here. There's a lot to like about this game. It's very well designed in all of those aspects. However, the camera I mentioned earlier is very annoying in the game, and it just gets more annoying as you go. Taking these blind jumps all the way into the last level, jumping into the water, not knowing where the spikes are going to be, it really does get on your nerves the more you play the game. Also, the jump mechanic, as far as like all jumps are the same, like that's something I never really got used to. I definitely want to be able to time my jumps and basically have different jumping mechanics as I went. But also, the idea that you have to find all of these items in every single one of the levels if you want to have those items back again after you've already collected them is an annoying factor. Yes, it does allow for more exploration in the game, allows you to basically try the levels multiple times in different ways. But at the same time, like if you just save your password, you can start every level with the items that you collected in the last level, and it makes the game way easier. And it's like, why are they going to make you jump through this unnecessary, cumbersome step of writing the password down, entering the password in, just to keep the items that you had in the last level? The gameplay mechanics, like when you died, you do lose them and you can't get them back. That's fine, it's annoying, but to have the idea that you can keep them, you just have to go through this cumbersome password system. I don't know. I find that very, very annoying game design, personally anyway. I also wish they'd done a little bit more with the card system. Instead of just simply being a collectible aspect, actually make them like power-ups, something you can use inside the game, something that you actually want to collect. But at the same time, like if they had left the card system out like completely, I wouldn't even have thought anything about it. So I guess it's a added bonus of just extra material that I really shouldn't complain about. But overall, if you're comparing this game to like Ninja Gaiden Shadow or Shadow of the Ninja, those games are definitely better games than this game. And it's not because like I don't like the stealth mechanics, it's just simply because those games felt more fun when I was playing through them. And specifically Ninja Gaiden Shadow, because I recently went through that one a couple months ago, and I pretty much had fun start to finish while journeying through it. And when I went through this one, I can't say it was fun start to finish, and I did get a little frustrated, and some of the design choices I feel like were a little bit lacking, even though like it was in color and had some great graphics and some great enemies. But overall, I just don't feel like it lives up quite to the name of Shadow of the Ninja or Ninja Gaiden Shadow. And so I feel like it's definitely going to stand in the shadows of those two games. And so if you've already finished those games, this would be a fun little third game to sort of throw in there toward the end to sort of wind the series up here, if you consider it as part of that series. But what do you all think? Do you enjoy this particular game? Is it one of your favorite games? Do you dislike the game? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.